I really never thought I would reach stage 50 and become a clown. My father passed away in 2018, left me a little bit of money. I didn't want to use it to pay bills or anything like that. So I signed up to go on a clowning tour to Russia. I just thought I would really go and honor my father on this trip, and then that would be it. It would be like a one and done thing. I never really thought I would clown again afterwards. And then I saw the power that clowns had over people, like when we would go into like a hospital room and you would see somebody physically in pain, but for the moment that we were there, you could just see that pain leave their face and they almost forgot that they were in pain because they were so focused on having fun with us and interacting with us. And so when I came home, I thought, you know what, there's something to this. And it was at that time that I actually thought of revisiting this whole bullying thing. And that's kind of how Bullseye the Clown came. When kids are, or even adults, when people are calling you names, it's kind of like they're slinging arrows at you, and then every once in a while that arrow hits the bullseye.
Welcome to the latest edition of Adeptus On-Air, and as you can see today we have a very special guest in Brian Lee, also known as Bullseye the Clown, who has won awards for his act and humanitarianism. So Brian, thanks for joining the show. Really look forward to speaking today.
Thank you for having me. That's great.
Awesome. So, Brian, your advocacy against bullying, is there a backstory to that, and how did you become involved in that cause?
Well, of course, my background, of course, is I was bullied as a kid. It was during high school and junior high school. All the kids would make fun of me because I was not really athletic. I was always overweight. Always wearing the husky jeans and things like that. And so the kids were always pushing me into lockers and knocking me down and putting notes on my back, things like that. And then when I came home, I grew up, my parents divorced when I was really, really young. And so I lived with my mom and my stepdad. And my stepdad was an alcoholic and very abusive and angry. So even when I got done with school and being bullied at school, I would come home and I would kind of get bullied at home as well. So that was kind of how the whole bullying stuff started, was just really from a young age. Not so much during grade school, but like really once I hit junior high and from junior high on.
Yeah, wow, sounds like a tough upbringing. And Well, I'll skip to another question I wanted to ask you. But bullying is a story pretty much as old as time. It's there's no gender boundaries, there's no age boundaries, there's no nationalism boundaries. An issue that's all over the world. Why do you think that's something that's persisted really throughout humanity? Like in your opinion?
I don't know. I don't know if it's just always it's a power struggle, and I do believe that a lot of people bully because of the way they've been treated as well. So, I was fortunate enough to actually get to talk to some of the people who bullied me whenever I was younger, when I was working on my book. And, they kind of were in the same boat. They were like, we were being bullied. So we figured if we bullied somebody else, we wouldn't get bullied as much if we kind of went in and kind of worked with the bullies, and became part of their clique, then they wouldn't bully us. So I do think that a lot of people are bullied at home, and then they want to have some kind of a power trip at school where they can feel in control. And it's the same with work. You might work for like a tyrant boss, but then when you come home, maybe you're wanting to exert your power. So I think that there's this power and authority dynamic that still stays persistent no matter what kind of a culture you're in. So even like in the old caveman days, the cavemen would bang their ladies over the head and drag them back to the cave, So, I mean, it seems like no matter what kind of a culture you have, you're always going to have some kind of a power dynamic. And I don't think that's ever going to change as far as that goes. I think what changes is our ability to either cope with it or our ability to kind of thwart it off if we can.
Yep. No, that makes sense. And what is the origin of Bullseye? How did that alter ego come about, and how did the creativity happen with that?
Well, believe it or not, I really never thought I would reach age 50 and become a clown. Uh, so this is not something I really ever thought about doing. I was a theater major in school, and I did do stand up comedy for 10 years. But my father passed away in 2018. And at that time, I was kind of working a job that I didn't like. And so on a whim, I thought, my dad never traveled. He left me a little bit of money. I didn't want to use it to pay bills or anything like that. So I decided I had seen a movie years ago called Patch Adams with with Robin Williams in it. And Patch Adams is a real guy. He's a clown who happens to be a doctor. And he does humanitarian clown tours all over the world. And as just on a whim, I thought I've never really clowned at all. But I signed up to go on a clowning tour to Russia in 2018 for 14 days. And so, what could possibly go wrong, in Russia with 35 clowns being thrown and being stuck there for 2 weeks. um, and so, I just thought I would really go and honor my father on this trip, and then that would be it. It would be like a one and done thing. I never really thought I would clown again afterwards. I just thought this was something that would be like a one time thing. And then I saw the power that clowns had um, over people, like when we would go into like a hospital room, say, and you would see somebody, physically in pain. But for the moment that we were there, you would just see that pain leave their face, and they almost forgot that they were in pain because they were so focused on having fun with us and interacting with us. And so when I came home, I thought, what, there's something to this. There's the, I don't, um, and it was at that time that I actually thought of revisiting this whole bullying thing, because I really never wanted to be like a spokesperson for bullying. And I never really wanted to even let people know that I was bullied as a kid. I never even told my mom, or my parents that I was bullied as a kid. Cause then, and my thinking was, what does that say about them? I don't want them to be embarrassed and thinking, oh, what's wrong with my son that he's getting bullied at school and things like that. So I kind of had like this little warped sense. So that's kind of how Bullseye the Clown came. The name actually kind of came from the whole bullying, and that was, when kids are, or even adults, when people are calling you names, it's kind of like they're slinging arrows at you, and then every once in a while, that arrow hits the bullseye, and so that was just kind of how I felt my name came about. Um, yeah, it was just like, so here I am, 55. It's still dressing up and clowning and doing crazy things. So there you go.
That's awesome, Brian. I mean, again, thank you for your advocacy. Bullying is a very important topic, and your avenue to that in order to help the cause is tremendous. You also wrote a book, Bullseye on Bullying. You kind of alluded to it a little earlier. How did that idea come about? And tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, originally the book came about because I wanted to try to find people kind of like me who were adults and really never dealt with it. So that was, I really never meant to make it like a children's book or, like a book for kids until as I was writing it, it just kind of went that way. But I was always fascinated by like how some people, are bullied as children and then they become super successful. You have people like Lady Gaga and Susan Boyle, and even I think I read Jackie Chan was bullied as a child, and they become super successful. And then you have people, like me, who become a clown. So I was kind of curious, why do some people become super successful in spite of being bullied, and then some people kind of stay within their shell and they never really venture outside themselves and go for the jobs that they really truly want to go for, whether it's fear of rejection or fear that they'll be bullied even more if they get the work, or whatever it happens to be. So originally it was just those people that I wanted to reach. I wanted to kind of find those people who still really haven't dealt with being bullied, and I wanted them to kind of be able to step into their own authority and be able to kind of own their own life again, instead of letting somebody else dictate to them what kind of life they should have.
Yeah.
And so that was
And
Go
when
ahead.
you mentioned haven't dealt with it, I guess what does that mean for just for the audience who may not understand? You bullied as a kid and haven't you saying going into adulthood and never really addressed it. What does that mean psychologically?
Well, it's like a lot, psychologically, I mean, I guess as a kid, I never really thought that I could stand up to people. I guess I never really thought that I could say no. And so I think that as I got older, I just kind of allowed people to define me. I allowed people to kind of put me in places where, oh, you're not ready for that, or oh, you didn't go to this school, so you're not smart enough to do this kind of a job, or whatever it happens to be, and you just go, oh, okay, and not realizing that allowing them to dictate what was happening to me was taking away my power and my authority. And something I learned later in life, which I probably wish I had learned earlier, was you know, most people are born with power and authority, um, but there's always going to be people who are more powerful than you, whether it's because of their job or whether it's because of circumstance. But we all have personal authority, and nobody can take that away from us unless we allow them to. And so, what I was doing all my life was I was allowing people to take away my authority. And so, at some point, I just had to realize I have to take that back. And I take that back by standing up and not allowing people to bully me. And I think part of that too is coming to terms with your authentic self. So that what that means is we know what's wrong with us, whatever it happens to be. If we're overweight, we know that we're overweight. If we're not smart, we cut. So at some point you have to own all of that. And so that was kind of and when you own all of that and you go, okay, well, I know that I'm not smart, and I know that I'm overweight, or I know that, you know, um, whatever it happens to be, when people come to you and they try to bully you because of that, um, then it kind of shuts them down, because when they know that you kind of agree with them. Um, when I was writing my book, I had actually had a little girl that I was talking to, and she said, how she fights the bully is that she tells them, she agrees with them, everything that they say. Oh, that dress is hideous that you're wearing. Oh, I know. I hate this dress. My mom makes me wear this dress. And she just agreed with everything that they said. And it shut them down, because they're like, well, where do we go with this? We can't get her to cry. We can't get her mad. And so they just kind of shut down and left her alone. And so that's kind of what I mean by dealing with it. It's kind of like owning who you are, and knowing what your flaws are and accepting them, instead of trying to hide them. I think when you try to hide them, it kind of gives the bully power, because then they have a little way. They have that little way in, and so it's funny because now people, they think it's a derogatory. Well, you're just a clown. Well, yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. Next,
Exactly, and then they don't have any ammunition with that going forward. No, that's a very good tool that hopefully if anyone's experienced that in the audience, they can use that for themselves. I wanted to ask you in terms of you had mentioned that you for the book you had spoken to people that bullied you in the past. How did you
Mhm.
get in touch with them? Was that a nervous conversation, or how, to many years later speak to them about it? Were they upfront and honest? Did they apologize? Like, what? How did those conversations go?
Well, as a matter of fact, I never really planned to even try to contact any of them. One of them actually contacted me. He was going through the 12-step program. So I'm assuming it was either AA or something to that effect. And he had to do his atonement or whatever, and he had to, you know, um, and so that's how that came about. And the ironic thing was, I didn't even whenever I thought about the people who bullied me, he was not one of the ones that came to mind. So, um, you know, there were some who are a lot meaner to me than he was, and so I never really thought of him as a really big bully to me. And so then I told him I was working on a book, and I asked him if he minded if I um, ask a few more questions. And so he was mixed race, and so he was a little bit leery of that, and people kind of wanted to bully him because of that. So that's where he decided to connect with the bullies and go around with the bullies because he thought, you know what, if I'm bullying other people, they won't bully me. And so that's kind of how that all came about for him. Um, and then so I was just curious. I was like, okay, well, how is your life? Is your life what you expected it to be now? And he was like, no. He's like, he's a loner now. He takes a job where he works by himself, just doing construction, nothing that he went to school for. And so it was just kind of like he in a way kind of let that life ruin him, really. Because he's just not living the life. I mean, he's been married and divorced, and married and divorced, um, and so it was just really interesting how, because I thought, well, if bullies rule the world, he's probably got this big corporate job or whatever, and to kind of find out that also he kind of goes within himself now, and again, he must have a drug or an alcohol problem, or he wouldn't be going through a 12-step program. And so yeah, it just kind of brought it full circle, because I guess I just in my mind thought that the bullies would um, they would soar, and that they would have great things, and so um, it was just kind of amazing to me, and it was kind of shocking to me that he didn't have the life that he envisioned either.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. No, that's interesting. And how do you, for the youth specifically, how do you build confidence to avoid and prevent bullying? Well, you know what? Let me tell you a quick story, quick personal story.
Mhm.
One experience with bullying. I think everybody's probably has at least some kind of experience with bullying. I think I was in eighth grade. We sat in pods of four, 4 desks, pods and 4 desks. So my back was towards another kid, a bigger kid that used to, pick on some kids. So my back was towards him, and he would turn around and like pluck me on the ear, a couple times, just messing with me while we're in class. And it just clicked to me in my mind. I was like, okay, I don't like this. I told him I don't like this. He kept doing it for about 2 or 3 days. So I started plotting in my mind, okay, the next time it happens, I'm going to surprise him. I'm going to stand up, take kind of take the leverage, stand up over him, and to where, I got my fist cocked, ready to go. And if he moves, boom, I'm going to, take the advantage and beat him up, basically. And so I did that. So I'm on the bus, riding to school. I said, okay, he has a habit of doing this. Next time he does it, boom, I'm going to react, boom. And the teacher knew I was a good student and everything. So if I'm the one that's, initiating a fight, something must be wrong, So I kind of knew that would be there. So as soon as he did it, I did it, and the whole class was like, "Whoa!" And I'm like standing up right over him, just waiting for him to move. I was ready, and he didn't move, and he left me alone. The teacher took us both outside, took us outside the class and spoke to us. I explained, "Hey, he's been plucking my ear the last 3 days, and I'm just not gonna take it anymore. It's X, Y, Z." We talked it out, and he never messed with me again. That was like my only experience growing up with bullying, and it just having the confidence and the planning and the willingness to address it. For me, it was physically. I'm not advocating for people to fight or anything, but at that time, in my eighth grade mind, that was the way to prevent it. So I say that to say, how do you build confidence to avoid, particularly as youth, to avoid and prevent those situations from happening, or if they're happening, how to kind of get it out of the way?
Well, actually, I mean, you did a great thing. I mean, that's kind of what I do. I would replot things, for me, it's like if I knew that I was being bullied at a certain point every day, like, okay, I'm at my locker at after fourth period. And that's where the bullies are. I wouldn't go to my locker after fourth period. I would reroute my day so that I would either take that book with me earlier in the day, and then I would go to my locker at a different time. So I would kind of plan ahead, like you were saying. I would kind of think about things like that. And kind of like you, surprise is always a wonderful thing. Do something that they're not prepared for. Because I would do the same thing. If they were bullying me, I would all of a sudden lay down on the floor and scream fire, or I would pretend like I'm having some kind of a seizure, or it just really freak them out. I would just and I suppose now it's kind of fitting that I'm a clown, because I was kind of the class clown back then. And so it kind of became known after a while that, don't mess with that kid, because who knows what he's going to do, I mean, the teacher would come out and go, what are you doing? Shouldn't you be in class? Why are you laying on the floor, rolling around and screaming stuff? Get to class. um, but, uh, but yeah, that's kind of, and I tended to be a loner. I didn't really travel with friends, in school. So, but I always tell kids now, if you do have friends, travel in packs, because a bully is less likely to target you if you're in a group of people. If you're just one kid and they know that they can flick your ear, or push you into a locker or do something like that, they're going to do it because. And typically, they like to travel in packs so that they have backup as well. So it's kind of, but it's planning. I think that a lot of people like me, I think I got bullied a lot because I tend to look down a lot as far as, for whatever reason, I guess I felt, inferior at that time. So I would kind of walk with my head down. Or, now as I think people walk with their head, like looking at their cell phone, you become a prime target. So, just make sure that you're having your head up and looking around and paying attention to your surroundings so that if something's happening, you know that it's coming. You know what I mean? And you can prevent it from that standpoint too. Um, but I think a lot of us get distracted, and that kind of opens the door. Bullies love distraction. They love distracted people. So I mean, those are the people who tend to get robbed, and the people who tend to get pushed down the street and things like that. So if you're kind of aware of what's kind of happening, I think that is a big help. And it's the same in the workplace. It's just walk. One of the things I try to tell the kids is I do like little exercises with their body, as far as like how to stand in a power stance and how to walk with your head up. And even how to, I'll ask them to, like, who's your favorite, like, really, really your favorite actor who has a lot of power. I have them try to talk like that, even though they feel stupid. But I just want them to get an idea of what it feels like to stand in a little different way and stand more alert, and not look down and not slouch. And because bullies kind of pick up on body language. And so if you have a more powerful body language, so those are the things that I try to help kids through, is just, you know, changing their body language, making sure that they're alert to their surroundings. And if they have to remap your day, let's figure out, okay, where's this happening? Or, where all else fails, we'll do like you do, stand up and get ready to punch them. Sometimes you do, sometimes you just have to fight back. I mean, so, you know, um, that's kind of what happened with Jackie Chan. When I was doing some research for the book, Jackie Chan said, um, some kid used to pick on him all the time, and the first time he beat somebody up, it never happened again. And so that kind of is the precursor. People kind of go, oh, don't mess with that kid because he'll punch you. you know Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, at that point, it's not really. I don't think it's about whether you're going to win or lose the fight. I think at that point, it's you got to let them know that what they're doing to you is not okay, and that you're not standing for it. Because, like I said, I think by ignoring it, like if you just sit there and let him flick your ear every day, and never said anything to him, then he's got the power over you, and by you not saying anything, you're just allowing that to happen, and you're telling him that it's okay for him to continue doing that because you're not saying anything.
Exactly. Exactly. No, that's a great message. And also, you mentioned the cell phone. I didn't even think about that. We didn't have those growing up, the cell phones to where our heads are down.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can't imagine the youth now. So many, people walking like that, and that's a prime target as well. That's interesting to mention. Um,
Yeah. One of the things
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
As I say, one of the things I always say is, back in my day, we didn't have like the internet, we didn't have cell phones. So if the bullies wanted to get to you, they made house calls. They would show up on your front lawn and grab your underwear and run it up the flagpole, things like that. So yeah, now it's a whole different ballgame with the internet and cell phones, because there's so many other ways for now bullies to reach you. And you've got people who can hide behind a username, and not even give their full name. Sometimes people are trying to bully you and you have no idea who they even are.
Yeah, yeah. Do you deal with people with experiencing cyberbullying and stuff like that? And how different
I,
is that
I
versus the physical presence bullying?
That can be, like I said. I mean, there are certain platforms I will not go on, because I know that the bullying is there. I've tried to have a Twitter account numerous times. I just find that is harder to control bullies on. So I just refuse to go on it. I don't have an account there. Um, I like Facebook because I can delete people, I can block people. What I tell people as far as social media goes, you have the power. You have the power to accept friends or not. I don't need to be everybody's friend, and not everybody needs to be my friend. So if somebody sends me a friend request, the first thing I do is I go to their page and I look at their page, and I'll scroll for quite a while. And if I don't like the stuff I'm seeing on their page, if I see that they're calling people names or they're just sound like a horrible person, I don't want them to be on my Facebook friends, so I delete them. I said no, I don't. I'm not going to. So I really have like Instagram. I have Facebook. Um, and of course, I do have like a YouTube channel. But other than that, it's kind of like that's about all I have. It's like I don't really feel like I need a gazillion friends. But yeah, and I suggest to parents all the time, monitor what your kids are doing on social media. If people are bullying them, then delete them off of their accounts. I think Twitter. I mean, I hope I don't get sued by Twitter, because um, but no, I just find that seems to have been the one where I got more name calling and more bullying, and so I'm like, I'm just not going to subject myself to that. And so for myself, I just don't go there.
Makes sense. No, it definitely makes sense. Brian, what type of locations have you performed at? To spread your message.
I typically go to schools, colleges. I mean, believe it or not, I've actually done my bullying programs in senior living communities as well. Because just because you're in your 80s or 90s doesn't mean that necessarily goes away. Um, Seniors can get kind of territorial as well. They have their, this is my table, even though it's in a public table. This is my table in the dining room. You don't sit at my table, and you know. Um, and so, yeah, I actually even do it for seniors. So I'll do it at senior centers or senior communities or, like I said, schools, colleges, summer camps, wherever. I even have gone. There was a job. I won't say the name of the company, but it's like a Fortune 500 company that I worked at for a while, and the culture was horrible. It's like I really should contact them and see if I can go in there and do like a program for them, because they had a really bad bullying culture in there. Um, but yeah, even sometimes if businesses are having issues, because I think that if you're having a lot of issues with turnover and you're having a lot of issues with low productivity, I think a lot of times it stems from the people who are not producing the way you want them to produce. I think there's an underlying cause to that. I don't think people just intentionally don't want to work, and they just intentionally don't want to produce like a low quality or a bad quality. It's because sometimes they might be the way that they're being supervised, and so they're like, well, they don't really care if they're producing well, because they don't like their boss, because their boss is mean to them, or whatever it happens to be. So I think that, as far as a business standpoint, if you're a business and you're experiencing a low low productivity and low morale at work, you might want to kind of visit those particular people, not from a not from a negative standpoint, but say, hey, we notice that you're not producing like you should, or you're not living up to the expectation of the company. Is there a reason why? Is there a problem? And if there's a problem, let's address it. Because it could be that they either don't work well with someone, or they're purposely not producing well because they're angry at a boss or whatever. So I think that it's very important for all businesses to really kind of have some type of a bullying policy in place. And a lot of them say they do, but they're not the best policies. Let us know if you're being bullied. Then you say, okay, I'm being bullied. And they're like, okay, and that's about where it goes. That's not exactly a policy. So
Yeah, no, that's interesting you said, because when I'm thinking of bullying, I'm thinking mostly of youth things. I'm not thinking of adults or elders or even corporate. What have you seen? What does corporate bullying say look like? Is it? I mean, obviously, you can't pluck you in the back of the ear. That's not something childlike that happened. For me. So what does that look like in a corporate sense?
well, in a corporate sense, it's verbal, or something that a lot of people don't consider to be bullying, which really kind of is too, is exclusion. So it's like, oh, okay, well, they're not part of our clique, so we're not going to invite them to this particular meeting, or we're not going to invite them to this company party, or we're not doing, so, and that tends to be a way like, not to classify groups of people, but women tend to bully that way more than men do. So women kind of have this thing, if they exclude people, that's kind of their way, like even little girls on the playground where they can't play with the cool girls because, you're not a cool girl. So that's kind of the way some of the corporate bullying is too. And then you just have some bosses who are tyrants and you do what I say and you don't talk back. And so, and I think a lot of power play comes into the corporate world, of, um, and ironically, some of the people who are the most powerful have a position of power. And what's great with that kind of role in a way is that they lose that position, they also lose that power. So I've had bosses who were like that, who were tyrants, and then when they got enough complaints, they lost their job, or they were demoted, and they no longer had the power to bully, and to demand things that that we couldn't produce. Um, so yeah, a lot of it, like I said, a lot of it's positional power, in corporate. People think that they have the right to bully somebody because of their position that they have.
Got it, got it, got it. And for you, Brian, what is your character like in Bullseye the Clown? What is your performance like? Is it more upbeat? Is it more educational? Is it a mix of everything? Like how would you explain your aesthetic?
It's upbeat. Like I said, it's very upbeat. It's very audience participation. So I call a lot of people out of the audience. Um, and I try to find, it's like I'll try to ask a few people. I try to get like, if I know somebody who is a bully at their job, I'll ask. I'll say, you guys have somebody who, and so what I try to do is I do a role reversal. So I will bring the person who's the bully down, and then I'll bring somebody else who tends to get bullied a lot down, and then I have them reverse roles. I'll have the one who's the bully. I'll have them be the one who's getting bullied, just so they can kind of see what it's like. And then also to give the person who is being bullied, to give them the kind of, I guess, the best way is give them the experience of what it's like to be a bully, and to have power just for that moment in time. I don't know that, once I leave, if that has had any impact on it, but at least it's kind of a way for them. And, and I'll kind of coach the one who used to be bullied. I'll try to coach them and what to say to the bully and that thing kind of thing. But that's always kind of a fun thing, to kind of do the role reversal and let them see. And then I do some things, especially with kids, on power stances, and I have them walk certain ways. And of course, they think it's funny, but at the same point, I'm like, but you see how that feels different. How that makes you feel different. And I'll have them talk different ways. And I'll have them talk like Arnold Schwarzenegger, just for the heck of it. But they kind of get an idea of what it's like to to talk with power and things like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. What goals do you have for Bullseye for the next 3 to 5 years? You spoke about starting 5 years ago. What are kind of your plans moving forward, professionally with Bullseye the Clown?
Um, well, some of the goals I have, well, I also do humanitarian clown tours. So I actually started another company called Clowns on a Mission. And this is a company that we take people who want to go. We take volunteers into Guatemala, and we buy food and supplies for the people who don't have them. Actually, we just came back. Actually, I just like last week. I just got back from Guatemala. We went there and we served close to 400 hot meals to people who don't have access to food. We bought water barrels for people who don't have access to clean water. Of course, then we clowned with them too, and so that's I would like to get that company more. I guess more known, and to get more people to go on those tours, and so that we can do even more good. That was our third trip to Guatemala, and as far as Bullseye the Clown and the bullying goes, well, I still have a lot of work to do because we see the state of the world at the moment. So I've got some work to do.
Sure, for sure. It's been a age old problem, and I know you mentioned social media and stuff, but can you tell us where your social media channels are, so the audience can find you on Facebook, on YouTube, etc.
Yeah, actually, I have a website, bullseyetheclown.com. I also have a website called clownsonamission.com. So that has stuff on both of those as well. My book is also on Amazon. So you can find it either on amazon.com, just type in Bullseye on Bullying, or you can just go to bullseyetheclown.com and you can click the link there. There's a link for the book. I'm Bullseye the Clown on Facebook. And then I also have a Clowns on a Mission on Facebook, and I'm Clowns on a Mission official at Instagram.com, right on Instagram. And I'll give you a link to all those things, and you can put them on however you do.
We'll put them in the show notes, during the podcast once we run it. But Bullseye, Brian, thank you so much for all your humanitarian efforts, your messages, and work against bullying, and thanks for joining Adeptus On-Air and sharing your insight.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On-Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.